what's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Endless TBR. My name is Christian, and this is my YouTube channel where I love to talk about books. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to click on this video where I want to give a little reading update for the month of January, let you know how I'm doing so far, what books I've been reading, what I've been thinking about them. Sorry, I know this one's a little bit late. Usually I try to do this around halfway through the month. I haven't posted too much this month because I went on vacation at the beginning of the month, and then I came back. I got really, really sick, and so I've just been sitting on my couch, and then I'm finally getting my voice back a little bit. So yeah, this one's a little bit late, but I still have what, like 9 days left in the month, so plenty of time to finish a couple more books. But I thought I'd give a little update, talk about what I've been reading so far. It's been a good month. I finished 4 physical books so far. I finished 1 book on my Kindle, and then I finished 2 audiobooks as well. So 7 books total, which is pretty good for me considering I did go on vacation. So I was doing some other stuff besides reading, even though I did read a lot on my vacation as well. So I got that done. I didn't stop reading. But yeah, let's talk about some books. So I'm going to talk about my 4 physical books that I've read so far. The first one I finished this month was Inkspell by Cornelia Funke, the follow-up to Inkheart, which I finished in December. And this was such a great book. I thought this was honestly a a much better improvement over the first one. And the first one I liked a lot too. It's not like I didn't like that book, but when I was thinking about why I enjoyed Inkspell so much more, it's because I think Inkheart was lacking certain magical elements that I remembered about the franchise, and I just kind of missed it throughout that book. I'm going to say a minor spoiler about Inkheart and a minor spoiler about Inkspell, even though the Inkspell thing is actually written on the inside of the book, so it's not really a spoiler. It happens in the first couple chapters, but maybe skip ahead real quick if you don't want to hear that. But in Inkheart, they never actually go into the ink world. They're just in the fictional version of the real world, and the characters come out of the book and exist in our real world. Whereas in Inkspell, a lot of our characters finally travel into the book itself. And I enjoyed that so much because even though there were cool fantasy elements for the first one, like Capricorn and his men, running around causing mayhem, just actually being in the ink world and seeing all those, magical characters that Dustfinger just cried on about in the first book, like the fire elves and the glass men and all that kind of stuff. It was cool to finally actually be there. And I just felt like this book was just, it gave me that more childlike sense of wonder that I felt like I was missing from the first Inkheart. And don't get me wrong, like I said, I liked the first Inkheart, but I thought this was an improvement in almost every way. The only thing about this book I like a little less is the villain. I thought that Capricorn was a pretty good villain from the first one. And in this book, the villain is called the Adderhead, and I thought he was just weaker. He was just kind of like there. I don't know. That's just my personal feelings about it. I didn't care for the Adderhead as much. He didn't scare me. He seemed like he was more scared himself throughout most of the book. So, but that's all I'll say about it. But Inkspell was a really fun follow up to that book, so I enjoyed it. The next physical book I finished was The Dead Zone by Stephen King. This was one that I pretty much had no expectations for going in. I like to watch a lot of people's tier rankings and ranking videos online, and I've watched a lot of Stephen King ranking videos. And I don't know, I've never seen anybody really talk about the Dead Zone. And so, I'm reading them in publication order. This was just the next one up. And, it's not one of the big names that you hear about, like the Dark Tower series, The Shining, Carrie, The Stand, all those big ones. So I didn't really know what to expect going into it, and I loved this book. I thought this book was incredible, and I will say it's one of the best Stephen King endings I've read so far. I'm far from having read all of Stephen King, but I've heard a common criticism of his is that he doesn't handle endings really well. I don't know what people's thoughts generally about the ending of this book are, but I loved it. I thought it was probably my second favorite ending in a Stephen King book, right behind 11/22/63. So, if you don't know what this book is about, it's basically this guy named John Smith. He's in an accident as a kid and he has these premonitions. And then when he's an adult, he gets in another accident and those premonitions are like dialed up to like 100. And it's whenever he makes physical contact with someone, he gets like a glimpse into the future to see something about that person. And this book is basically about him struggling with himself, like the validity of these visions, while also struggling with his family. There's like a family struggle in there when they start to realize that his visions are coming true. His mom and dad interpret things very differently, as well as John's his struggle with the public. How when the public starts to realize that he is this psychic person who can get these visions. There's a lot of things that happen with him. People become obsessed with him, people hate him for various reasons, and I just found it a really compelling book. And it has a really, really great villain who doesn't pop up until pretty late in the book, but very memorable villain with a great showdown at the end. That, like I said, I thought the ending was amazing. So the Dead Zone's definitely up there on my Stephen King list so far. I did go back and I looked at a couple other people's lists, and then I looked for the Dead Zone, and I started to notice that it was higher up on most people's lists. So this is one that people like a lot, but it's not really in a lot of people's top tens. But this one was definitely one I was not expecting to love, and I loved it. So check this one out if you're a King fan and you haven't read it yet. The next book I finished was Angels and Demons by Dan Brown. I've been talking about this one a lot. I finally got around to reading it. I'm really excited to jump into the Da Vinci Code. I almost did immediately. I almost jumped right into it, but I showed some restraint because I have other books that I said I was going to read this month. But I think the Da Vinci Code might be a February read for me because I was ready to get into it. But this book was so much fun. I remember reading this back in high school and really enjoying it. I wanted to revisit it as an adult, and I will give a caveat. So when it comes to history and things like that, like these books revolve around a character named Robert Langdon, who is a symbologist, and his whole thing is he's a history buff. He knows a lot about different like sects and cults and religions based off their symbols. When it comes to historical knowledge, I have like close to zero. So if people are looking at these books as like looking at their historical accuracy, I'm a very bad meter for that. I've heard some criticism of Dan Brown's stuff where they say, based in a historical context, even though this is fiction, it's just ridiculous stuff. But with that caveat, knowing nothing about history, I thought this book was wildly entertaining. It is just from page one to end, it's like 550 pages long. From page one to the end, it is just nonstop action and go, go, go as Robert is trying to save these cardinals. There's a papal conclave, I think is how you say it. They're trying to choose the next pope, and there's a force out there that is threatening all of the cardinals and the Vatican City itself, and it's up to Rogbert to figure out like how to save them. And I thought it was just a thrilling read, a lot of fun. I will say when it comes to the character of Robert himself, there's not much in this book that like fleshes him out. We basically just get the idea that like he's super smart, he's really good at symbols, he knows history, and he's gonna go save these cardinals. But so if you're looking for like in-depth character work, you're not going to get it here. I don't remember if he gets a lot of character work in the Da Vinci Code, although I want to say I don't think so. But these books are more about the thrill and the chase and uncovering the mystery. And I thought Angels and Demons did it really well. I had so much fun reading it. Not a 5-star read for me, but a solid 4-star. I enjoyed it a lot, and like I say, it kickstarted my want to get back into these Robert Langdon books. So that is Angels and Demons. And then pretty recently, I finished The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, another book that I read as a kid, or I'd say like, a teenager. And I actually don't really remember liking this one. I remember thinking it was okay, but for some reason when I was looking at my bookshelf, The Great Gatsby just popped out at me. Just a nice, simple, like 150, 170 page read that I can get through. And I know it's a classic. So I wanted to go back and read it. And surprisingly, I had fun with this book. I'll admit the story itself, sorry, I gotta itch my nose. The story itself is pretty simple. It's very basic. It's nothing that I would say is exciting or thrilling, but I did enjoy a lot the character of Gatsby when you're finally starting to see like who he is and what he's about, like what he's trying to do in the book. It was I thought it was a nice dramatic piece. Sorry, I can't talk. I turned to my fiance and I was like, dang, Gatsby's kind of a kind of a guy, isn't he? He's I don't know what to say, but I did enjoy this book, and this book is heavily symbolic when you look it up. The point of Scott Fitzgerald's writing in here is to basically signify his issues with the idea of the American dream and how he thinks that the American dream is failing, which is, I think, something that you could say is very relevant to today's world in some aspects. And so I had a good time reading this, and I would recommend if you do read it, take the time to do some research afterward to like look into the themes and the symbology that he was trying to present in this book, because I do think it elevated a lot, and it made me think a little bit more about the story. So I think the reason why this is so popular is because, like I said, it's so short. I read this in like one day, so it was just very easy to get through. But I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought. I gave it a also a 4 star, not a 5 star for me, just because it wasn't the most thrilling thing, but an enjoyable time that I did not expect. So those are the physical books that I've finished so far. I read one book on my Kindle that I totally forgot to mention in my January TBR video. It's my book club's book of the month that my fiance picked. It's called The Child Thief by Brahm, and this book was really fun. Another 4 star for me. It is basically a dark and gritty retelling of the Peter Pan story. It's yeah, it takes place partially in the real world, but partially in this place called Avalon, which is the Neverland version in this book. And it's about, how Peter's out here kidnapping kids, bringing them to Avalon, and essentially he's recruiting them for a war. But the thing I liked about this book a lot is, like I said, it was dark and gritty. It was a really unexpected take. Like when you realize that this is a Peter Pan story, you're like, oh shoot, like this is violent and crazy. It's not. This isn't your Disney Peter Pan, right? But I loved this book as I read the acknowledgments at the end, and what the author Brahms said was that when he was inspired to write it when he was reading the original Peter Pan book, and there were some lines in there that are kind of bizarre, like hint at the fact that Peter Pan is kind of like this dark and disturbed character. And going and reading those lines and looking at them in the context of the story, I was like, yeah, maybe the original Peter Pan story is a lot darker than we think, and we're just so used to like Peter Pan Disney that we don't think about it. So I really enjoyed this book a lot, and Brahm is one of my fiance's favorite authors. So it's definitely made me want to read more things by him. But I'd say it was like a good old fashioned fantasy adventure with some dark and gritty aspects as well too. Some decent violence in there if that's your kind of thing. So Child Thief gets a double thumbs up from me. Let's see what else. I've listened to two audiobooks so far this month as well. One I mentioned in my last video, kind of revisited a little bit. It is The Bad Weather Friend by Dean Koontz. This was a blind pickup for me. I wanted to read my first Dean Koontz novel. I just selected literally the first one that popped up when I typed his name into the Kindle search bar. So I picked this one, and I learned that this is pretty much a very, very poor showing of his writing. I did not like this book at all. I've only given two-star reviews to books since my time starting this channel. One of them was The Prophet of Yonwood in the City of Ember series, and my second 2-star review is this book, The Bad Weather Friend. I really did not care for this book at all. It felt like Kuntz was just every time there was any word they wanted to put in this book, he like opened a thesaurus and was just like, let me find the biggest possible word to substitute in for this normal word. And it was so bizarrely written. And the overall theme of the book is just good people good, bad people bad. Like it sounds kind of silly, but that is literally the entire point of the book, is just to say like, hey, good people are good. So the only reason I didn't give it a 1-star review is there's a character named Spike who is a Craggle. It's like this fictional type creature, and he's pretty funny. He has a couple moments throughout the book that got a good laugh out of me, so I was entertained by him. But overall, I didn't care for this book at all. And like I said, I've learned that when it comes to Dean Koontz's writing, this was a really bad book for me to pick as like his first. So I read some comments. I saw that Intensity and Watchers are a couple really good books by him. So I plan to pick those up and read them. And yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. I've learned probably I shouldn't just blind pick up authors' books anymore, especially the ones I'm super interested in. So that is The Bad Weather Friend. The other audiobook that I listened to is called You Killed Me First by John Mars. If you watch my videos, you'll know I'm a huge John Mars fan. One of his books ended up in my top 10 of 2025. That was The Good Samaritan. I listened to that in December, and then I immediately listened to another audiobook by his in December called Keep It in the Family. And so this is my third by him, and he is 3 for 3 right now as far as 5-star reviews go. When it comes to thriller authors, I think he is the best that I've read. And granted, I will say my thriller repertoire is not very big, but John Mars's books have just been so much fun. And I was thinking about how even to describe what the plot of this book is, and I don't know how to do it without giving away things because the whole point of thrillers and suspense is there's twists throughout there, and I don't want to give anything away. I will say it's about these three ladies. Their names are Margot, Anna, and Liv. I was drawing a blank there for a second, and it's a story about their relationship, and they have a lot of history together, and it's just about their interactions, and they hate each other to different degrees, and they just constantly digging at each other, trying to undermine each other. And the book doesn't go into why right off the bat, and that's the part that I don't want to talk about, is the why. But from the very opening couple chapters of this book, you're just like, man, they are petty, they are out to get each other, and the whole book is just you figuring out why are these three ladies just undermining each other so hard. So that's all I'll say. I will say John Mars is so far my favorite author when it comes to writing characters that are terrible people, but that I can't help but root for in some way. It sounds awful, but it is true. Where I'm like, man, this character is just such a piece of garbage, but I kind of want them to win because they're justified in doing that. All three of the books I've listened to by him have had a character like that, and I just enjoyed it so much. So I would definitely recommend checking out pretty much any John Mars book so far. I'm gonna keep listening to his stuff, but the Good Samaritan, um, Keep It in the Family, and You Killed Me First have all been really, really solid. And then currently, so those are all the books I've finished. The current audiobook I'm listening to, this was one that I didn't know what to listen to next. So I went into the Kindle app, I went to the audiobook section, and I just went to the most popular page and picked the first one that popped up. It's this book called The House Beyond the Dunes. I had to look at it on my phone. The House Beyond the Dunes by Mary Burton. It is a thriller about this woman named Lane who kind of wakes up in the hospital. She has some amnesia. She was visiting her boyfriend of 3 weeks. They've only been together for 3 weeks. His name is Kyle. She's visiting his house for the first time. And then next thing you know, she wakes up. She's in the hospital with like a concussion, and she finds out that Kyle is dead. Apparently, they fell down a set of stairs together, and Kyle died in the accident. And the book is about her trying to uncover why this happened, because there are certain hints that this wasn't just an accident; something else occurred that caused this death to happen. And there are certain characters in the story that think that Lane is responsible for that, and so she's also trying to get to the bottom of like, am I guilty? Am I not guilty? She doesn't remember anything. And I'm about 82% of the way through it. I would say so far this audiobook is just okay. I think I'm a little spoiled by John Mars. Going from John Mars into this book was like the peak of thriller writing to something that it's been honestly a little bit boring. I think the character of Lane is okay. The mystery that's starting to unfold is fine. It's entertaining, but the book seems to be moving at a really slow pace, and not enough is being revealed quick enough to really keep my interest. I am going to finish it. I'm going to see, usually these books, the last 20 or 30% kind of makes or breaks it, because you start to get all the revelations about why characters have been behaving certain ways throughout the story. So I'm going to stick with it. But as of right now, it's like a mid like 3 star, low 3 star for me right now, and we'll see how it ends. But yeah, I think I've just been spoiled by John Mars. Unfortunately, I've loved his book so much, and he's now like the gold standard of thrillers for me at the moment. So that's the book I'm listening to, and then the physical book I'm reading currently is Navigators of Dune, book 3 in the Schools of Dune trilogy. Finally got around to getting to it. I was going to read it in December, didn't get to it, so now I finally picked it up. I'm about halfway through it. You can see my bookmark there, and I'm enjoying it. I feel like I've said it a couple times, but when it comes to Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson's stuff, this is my sixth book reading by them, and I will say they are incredibly consistent. For the most part, each of their books I've pretty much felt the same way about. If you like their stuff, then you'll probably continue to like it. If you hate their stuff, you're probably going to continue to hate it. This is not falling outside the norm at all. It's continuing the story of the Sisterhood of Dune and the Mentats of Dune book, And the most thrilling part about this trilogy that I've mentioned before is this conflict between the anti-technology Butlerians and the people in the galaxy that want to keep technology. And in this book, it is really coming to the forefront where they're finally starting to truly battle it out. As the book implies, the navigators are a big part of that. The Imperium is starting to realize that these navigators are crucial for the future of the galaxy and for the safety of space travel. And so things are kind of coming to an head where everybody is trying to battle over the sake of technology and getting the navigators in their corner. So about halfway through it, I am enjoying it. And yeah, I don't really know. I don't feel like I have anything else to say about it. I enjoy the Brian Herbert stuff. I don't think it's amazing, but I do find it entertaining enough. And so I just find them like really nice, easy, sit back and relax, popcorn action books that I can kind of get lost in the Dune universe for a few hours. So that is Navigators of Dune, enjoying that. And yeah, I've got a couple other books I want to read this month. I'm going to at least get around to probably one or two more. I might have to carry over one from my January TBR into February, most because I forgot about the Child Thief when I was doing my TBR. Completely forgot about it, and that was like a nice 500-page book, so it kind of set me back on some of my other books a little bit. But 9 days left in the month, I think I can at least knock out one or two more beyond Navigators of Dune. So that is what I've been reading and what I've read in January. One more quick update that I wanted to talk about is I want to start posting a little bit more content on here. Something that I've not done yet is post any like single book reviews, and I feel like that's something I really want to start doing if I want to grow the channel. The biggest struggle that I've had with it is time. I have a job, I'm in school, and then trying to do this on the side. I just haven't had the time to make like full length review videos. The good thing is, I think I'm going to start doing YouTube shorts, just like 2-minute long, like basically yay or nay videos where I talk about a book I finished and if I recommend it or not. The main thing that was holding me back from that is I had this like ancient like iPhone 8 that was all busted up and barely worked, and I finally got a iPhone 13. It's not brand new, but it's newer, and the quality of the audio and the video is a lot better. And I bought a little iPhone tripod here, so I think what I'm going to start doing is making little YouTube shorts whenever I finish a book and just talking briefly about the book if I like it or not. So yeah, stay tuned to that. Just wanted to give you an update that that's something I've been thinking about for a while, and I wanna try to execute on it to produce a little more content. And then also a couple like 5 days ago, I made a video talking about movies. I know that was random, just kind of came out of nowhere. It was a video I had been thinking about pretty much all throughout the end of 2025. I was like, it'd be kind of cool if I made a video ranking all the movies that I watched in theaters because I watched so many of them. I'm not going to do a lot of movie related videos on this channel, maybe a couple here or there, like 3 or 4 a year, but I just like watching movies a lot. And I was like, I want to try this and I want to share it. It was kind of a test for me to if I can do more tier ranking style videos in the future. I have a tier ranking video idea that relates to books. So it was kind of my test project to see if I could do that. So, but I just wanted to acknowledge that because it's like, yeah, randomly I was like, here's a video about movies, but I will stick to mostly books. I just might do a little movie update once in a while, just for funsies, because I like movies a lot too. So, but that is it. That is all I got to talk about for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. My name is Christian. This is the Endless TBR, and let me know what you've been reading this month down in the comments. Things you've been liking a lot. I'm always trying to add more books to my TBR. It is endless, as you know. And thank you so much for checking this video out. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.